you've redecorated. I don't like it. Well, to be fair, sometimes I do like a good old TARDIS renovation. When they work, they're a great way to spruce some new life into the Doctor's oldest companion. I'm not going to be clever this week. I like TARDIS interiors and I want an excuse to talk about them, so strap the fuck in and listen to me talk about them and rank them, best to worst. There's a few criteria I think make a good TARDIS interior. It isn't just impeccable artistic design realised masterfully by a fantastic production team. It's the way these interiors are used within scenes, how the geography and space is utilised to create powerful feelings in crucial moments. I also like to think about the relationship between the TARDIS and the Doctor, as well as the interior's placement in the chronology, both in-universe and production-wise. So if there's something I think changed the game for how you shoot and design the interior to the TARDIS, and the subsequent design goes a step back, I will be marking it down. I want to point out before I potentially get all negative on some of these designs that I think every single one has some artistic merit. Every single design has some practical elements that is undeniably impressive, and every single design is unmistakably the TARDIS. That last one seems obvious, but when you really think about it, it is a small miracle no one went with a radical redesign once across Who's almost 60-year lifespan. The worst idea we thankfully ever got was fixing the chameleon circuit. I'm not going to split hairs over minute differences between classic eras and stuff like that, because it's largely unnecessary, but if I know Doctor Who fans in the comment sections like I do, and I do, then I'm sure someone is going to call me despicable for leaving out their one-off favourite. If I did, I just want to say it was intentional, it was a direct attack on you, I knew that one was your favourite and I left it out because I love to cause hurt. Ha 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 ha. But before I go into the nitty gritty of ranking every TARDIS interior from worst to best, I'm going to walk away from my desk on a long trek all the way to the other side of my room for today's sponsor. Whew. That was exhausting, probably need a good nap now, which is why I've partnered with Emma, who have very kindly sent me this divan bed and a lovely new mattress. So let's get it all open. Whoa! You look good. You look great. Anyway, back to the advert. Yeah, so this mattress has got Halo memory foam technology, not to be confused with the hit video game series Halo. It's completely different. Because of that and the Ergo Cell technology, you'll get a fantastic sleep, Basil. Just absolutely fantastic. And I've been trying it out this week, and I used to get quite a bit of lower back pain from certain mattresses, just from like sport-related injuries. Yes, I know what you're thinking. A, how can this mattress be such good value? B, you've never done sports full fat, what are you talking about? It's a gorgeous sleep. I'm showing it to you without any of the bedding on it, because obviously I want you to have a good look at the thing. It would kind of defeat the point if I put the covers and pillows on. So you just have to imagine what I'm like, tucked up in bed, snoozing away.
Way up is the best angle as well.
It's insanely comfortable, and most of all, it's really good for your back. I've been sleeping in various positions and I've not had any back pain in the morning like I sometimes get on other mattresses, and I think that's really everything you can ask for as you slowly approach your 30s. I don't know about you guys.
Aids breathability.
It aids breathability.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So you're less likely to get the smells, and it makes it a spongier, more comfortable ride. Not that you need to ride on this thing. And they also very kindly sent me the divan bed, which comes with some compartments, and it's very sturdily made. It was very easy to set up, and it complements the mattress perfectly. So if I was you, I'd get it all in one, baby. Yeah. You can also get 200. They'll also offer 200 risk-free nights in which you can return your divan bed and mattress at any time if you're unsatisfied. Use my code MATTSLEEPS for 50% off and an additional discount on top, or click the link below to get your Emma Sleep products. Woo!
Interesting. Very Avon Road. Seen one of these before.
Before we get into it, my favourite non-Doctor TARDIS is actually the Silence's faux TARDIS. I love it when Doctor Who reuses a set and tries to pass it off as some deeper canon connection. I think really loving the show is about seeing all the campiness and kitsch amongst the darkest moments and enjoying the wonderful mixture of the two. It's a silly corny show that explains away two Gwen Coopers with genetic multiplicity, and that's why it's so much fun. Anyway, I like this faux TARDIS because the second time it pops up it's used for one of my favourite Matt Smith speeches. He rambles, stalls and tools with these sauce and end bastards, and if you didn't already have the Pandorica speech, this would be a contender for the finest one. Go away, Akaten. The lighting is uncharacteristically fantastic. Doctor Who Series 5 is my favourite series of the show, but it does often look very flat on TV inside that TARDIS. Series 6 wasn't just ambitious in scope and story, but look and feel too. The central spire beaming light out allows for some interesting contrasts and shadows, and it makes this speech and battle look about as cinematic as Doctor Who gets. Plus it feels like this faux TARDIS light column was the inspiration for the later Smith-Capaldi TARDIS, which was lit much better than the first Moffat-era design.
Oh, for God's sake, Gallifrey, stand!
The War Doctor's TARDIS. Not an awful lot to say about this one on account of the fact that it's clearly several bits of TARDIS smashed together. In spite of all the budget allocated for the 50th, I can see why it didn't quite stretch to a brand new TARDIS interior for the late great John Hurt. The Master Thespian was probably pricing it up already. As cool as it would have been to have a War Doctor specific TARDIS, we spend such a small amount of time on screen there that it simply wouldn't have made sense from a production standpoint. Still, the marriage of roundels with the Ninth Doctor's central console worked thematically as Hurt was revealed as the bridging Doctor between these two eras. I also think about it in the context of this awesome scene where the desktop keeps glitching.
Desktop is glitching!
Yeah, what he said. Moffat was great at coming up with fun little moments like this. It's a great excuse to get our guest doctors in every single interior without a contrived reason, and it leads to a cool little flourish as 11 hits the controls and...
Ha! There! Stabilise!
Wonderful. Obviously it's coming fairly low in this list because it's a live action one-off, it's predominantly two other designs smashed together, and it just doesn't have the same longevity as the next couple of designs.
The round things. I love the round things. What are the round things? No idea.
The 13th Doctor's TARDIS. Sigh IRL. You know what's most frustrating about this TARDIS? It's one of the few elements in the Chibnall era of Doctor Who that can't be affected by the bad writing. It's a design job, so my distaste for this TARDIS has absolutely no correlation with the writing and the production design, just as the opening credits and theme remain unhampered in their quality. Chibnall's obviously had a governing hand in the final design, he's showrunner, but in this instance his contributions don't really affect my criticism, so for once, we're not going to talk about the timeless, the TTC, you know what I'm getting at here. There's one simple reason I can't get into this TARDIS interior, and that is the fact that it went from the multiple levels of the Moffat-era TARDISes back to having just one floor, restricting what could be shot and how scenes could be composed. Going from multiple levels to just one again was a real misstep in my opinion. The Moffat-era TARDISes had expansive sets with 3 levels that were more than just an afterthought. Various scenes and memorable moments took place underneath the central console, up high from the steps. Smith's jumpy, energetic Doctor was made for a TARDIS with sets of stairs offshooting in multiple directions so that he could dance to his two hearts' content. The Chibnall era has very clearly tried to stray closer to the RTD years, with more down-to-earth working-class companions akin to Rose Tyler and Donna Noble, albeit with none of the dimensionality and chemistry, but nowhere more obvious is this than in the TARDIS itself. This TARDIS owes a lot to the Coral TARDIS. The spires and central console structure are lifted directly, but that doesn't mean there isn't originality here. The use of a crystal motif rather than coral reef is visually interesting, but then it's ham-fisted by the decision to bathe everything in either orange or blue, like it's some kind of Hollywood poster. It's hard to get around the appeal to the Tennant synapses of your brain, and it comes across a bit pathetic. It's trying really hard to make you remember the Coral TARDIS. This crystal motif could have been much better served with a more original console room structure, and ditch the blue, even ditch the orange, because we've seen it all before. What about like purple hues or greens, for example? I mean, really just any fresh colours that we haven't seen yet with a structural design that feels new. But the crystal's great.
Yeah.
The TV movie 7th Doctor, 8th Doctor TARDIS. This one kind of has the inverse to the War Doctor's TARDIS. It's a one-off, but instead of cutting corners, they went the opposite. They spent loads on it because they wanted it to be the bomb and were hoping this version would go on to series. It started the whole idea of a big expansive set with spires and also the idea that it felt homely and lived in. It perfectly suited a universe-weary 7th Doctor as well as a romantic, handsome, youthful 8th Doctor too. I think the only thing that lets this one down is the fact it doesn't really feel like a ship. It's very cosy and homely, and it works, but I think a TARDIS like the Capaldi variant strikes a better balance between being a spaceship and a place where the Doctor resides. This TARDIS feels like the retirement plan TARDIS, you know? But I think we really have to appreciate this TARDIS because much of its DNA went into the revival designs, and it proved that a TARDIS could be far more intricate and different than what we were used to since the show's inception.
He's gonna follow us.
The assembled odds of Genghis Khan can get through that door. Believe me, they've tried.
For shorthand, I've been referring to this as the Coral TARDIS because listing both Doctors every time is a mouthful, and I'm sure I'll get hate if I refer to just one of the Doctors, implying I have a preference. Look what you're making me do, Internet. You're making me beat up grass! If and when I say Coral TARDIS, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the 9th Doctor's TARDIS is obviously awesome. It's going to be the one here that is the most personal bias on me because it was my first TARDIS. Everyone has one, and for me it was the one in the revival in 2005. What I think is most striking about it is the colour palette. It chooses to completely forego the stark clinic white of the original overarching design and instead go for something that's grungier and dirty.
I thought it'd be cleaner.
Cleaner?
This really works for the 9th Doctor. Post-Time War and really not giving a fuck anymore, the Doctor wearing a tea and leather jacket is the Time Lord equivalent of coming to work in your bathrobe, but it also strangely pairs up nicely with the suited 10th Doctor because of the contrast. His iconic smart casual look would make you think he'd suit a more pompous TARDIS, but instead keeping the grunge phase provides a visual reminder of how much of a tortured little emo boy the 10th Doctor is. I speak in jest because 10's continuous post-Time War arc is of course fantastic. And the TARDIS matches. The organic feel reinforces the idea that the TARDIS isn't just a ship, but a being with a soul, and the pair have been forced to grow closer together in their loneliness. In my headcanon, it makes sense to me that the TARDIS would stop with more earthly interiors and go fully alien to reflect the Doctor's grief for his homeworld. This is now the closest thing he has to it, and it's a perfect visual reminder for the audience as we delve deeper into that history across series 1 to 4. But it's not my favourite TARDIS. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic TARDIS, an evolution from the older designs that make sense for the character, and to reinvigorate the bounds of what Doctor Who could look like. It is synonymous with one of the best eras of Doctor Who ever, the time that made it a household name, and it had the writing to back it up. But I just like these other TARDISes slightly more. TARDISes. Tardi. TARDISes? So now we come to the TARDIS interiors that I really admire. Matt Smith's 11th Doctor got the privilege of having two completely different TARDIS interiors, but this first one suits his character the best. In many ways I think this TARDIS interior had the toughest job of the revival. It's not hard to up the production value going from the old designs to the 2005 Cole update. This TARDIS had to reinvent itself off the back of a TARDIS interior synonymous with the most popular period of the show, a golden age if you will. And when this interior debuted in the 11th hour, it was nothing short of magical. It's a complete stylistic overhaul, whilst keeping with the key design traits we expect from the TARDIS, like the hexagonal console and the computer screen. It keeps the cobbled together lived-in vibe of the Coral TARDIS that preceded it, but feels way more expansive. The glass floor is really unique amongst other designs, and the steps leading up and down the central console suit Smith and his erratic running around. Plus that starting lever is iconic, and it's no surprise it stayed going into the next interior. One or two of the beige bits looks a bit cheap a few years on, but the core design conceits of a multi-levelled interior which opens up the possibilities of filming scenes from many more angles and distances cannot be understated. The 11th Doctor's first TARDIS. Why is this TARDIS coming in third when I've just praised it so much? Well, aside from the fact that the other candidates had reasons to squeeze to the finish line, this one isn't as well lit as what could succeed it. It's great for what it is, but occasionally I think the colours in this TARDIS could be brought out in a bit of a garish way. I'm getting into the fine details here because this and the next two TARDISes could feasibly make the number one spot in my mind, but they just narrowly missed out. So yeah, this TARDIS is great, but not as great as the original TARDIS. Yeah, alright, it would be anything other than sacrilege to not put this TARDIS up there with the top contenders. In spite of having the least production finesse and sometimes looking flimsier than my credit score, this TARDIS is the blueprint, the Who print, and it's stuck around for a reason. It makes sense nowadays with the increased speed and pace of television that we've gone through so many interior designs. But back in the day it made sense to stick to this design.
Basic.
Classic, look at the colour scheme.
It's all white.
Genius.
A variation in console room was more of a novelty than anything else. Of course, the one plus to having a more unified design across eras is that it allowed them to keep expanding the TARDIS beyond the control room. We got bedrooms, the Zero Room, and that was all really cool. It's also looked so damn good every time the design's been brought back in the revival. There's been slight variations from story to story, but the white hexagonal display, the round things, it all looks fantastic. I love it when Eva Capaldi's in there, Joe Martin, the works. It's always looking good. I'm sure somebody will take issue with me making one spot on this list for a design that saw constant updates through the years, but I don't really care. Like, no one really wants to watch me talk about the minutiae between the designs for another 20 minutes, and they all kind of largely aesthetically mean the same thing. It's the big aesthetic overhaul and design changes that reflect the makeup of the show and its history that are going to interest me in this list, and that's why this one comes first.
It's like a
Spaceship.
kitchen.
What?
The Capaldi TARDIS, featuring Smith. Now, this one is a little awkward to rank. If I were to split this TARDIS design into two places on this list, the Matt Smith version would come much lower. I was very disappointed when this TARDIS was first unveiled. To go from an almost steampunk array of cobbled together antiques and a pleasing array of colours that suited the Doctor's outfit to a much cleaner, silvery blue mechanical design was jarring. Moffat said at the time that he wanted to remind people that the TARDIS was in fact a spaceship. It's not a set that the characters walk onto, it's a flying machine. He wanted that to be reflected in the design, which is why we went from little bits and bobs from an intergalactic garage sale making up the centre console to this shiny, more high-tech look. It was hard to like this interior when it didn't suit the Doctor who was flying it. This is exacerbated by the fact that the companion didn't work, the season arc was nonsensical and ultimately disappointing. It's hard to separate this interior from the driest run in Moffat's time as showrunner. Series 7B didn't need a new costume or TARDIS interior, it just needed a return to the tightly wounded scripting and focus that had been placed on Series 5. It's not like the original TARDIS wasn't hated either. People loved it, and it felt right at home with the fairy tale themes at play. This was a real, if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation. Perhaps literally. There is a story that the original Smith TARDIS was actually messed up when they transported it from one set to another, and rather than spend money on fixing it, the Beeb thought it would be better to just spend a little bit more on a brand new one that they could sell the returning series on. Change always sparks conversation, but looking back it makes this new interior feel like a distraction to Moffat's exhaustion in 2013, rather than it being right for the character of the Doctor. The TARDIS reflecting the Doctor matters in the new series. In the classic series it didn't matter so much, because they kept the design roughly through cycling Doctors. But nowadays, I think the TARDIS's ever-changing desktop wallpaper must reflect the Doctor who is flying it in some way. It makes sense for 9 and 10 to share the same TARDIS, it doesn't make as much sense for Smith to completely heel-turn on an aesthetic that worked so well for him before promptly giving it over to Capaldi. And that's the other thing, we were literally less than 13 full episodes away from Capaldi. Imagine how much more of an impact this interior would have had if it had been unveiled in Deep Breath.
You've redecorated. I really like it.
I really like that final scene between the Doctor and Clara. I think it's emotionally honest and firmly establishes the finesse of the companion relationship. If it also heralded the arrival of a brand spanking new TARDIS interior, then I think it would have been a final opening scene on par with the magnificence of the 11th hour's final moments. Instead, this interior always felt like a hand-me-down, and even Capaldi thought as much. In an interview during the time of his tenure, he expressed his disappointment over inheriting Smith's interior and Screwdriver. It must feel a bit disheartening to know that the last guy got his own costume, interior, and Sonic, whilst you seem to be getting all the things passed down to you. Even though it's not quite a fresh TARDIS, the small changes the production team made to this interior between Series 7 and 8 made all the difference in my opinion. First off, the inclusion of bookcases and a blackboard made it feel like Capaldi's in the same way the Series 5 aesthetic paired nicely with the Figgy port, I mean Matt Smith's Doctor. It stops the upper levels looking so barren, and it encourages dialogue exchanges to take place there. In Series 7 it barely gets used, but Capaldi and Clara are always up there poking at books and writing on the board. It's a great way to use it. Remember what I said about the lack of stories in the Whittaker TARDIS and how that brings it down? Well, this TARDIS came literally directly before it, and it uses the levels to maximum effectiveness. I can think of countless memorable shots either taking place up high or down low, or through some sort of movement or combination of multiple levels. It's just made the scenes within the TARDIS during that era of Doctor Who way more dynamic and way more interesting. And I think it's just like, it's such a shame that we've lost the multiple levels and gone back to just one kind of flat room. This TARDIS wasn't the one that I thought would be my personal favourite necessarily, but when I think about it over the years since it's gone out of the show, I really am fond of it. I really enjoy just looking at it more than any other TARDIS when it's in an episode, and I think it perfectly captures the marriage between it being a soulful being, a machine, and a sort of place of knowledge, a library for Capaldi, as much as it is his home.
This is the gateway to everything that ever was. Or ever can be.
So these are all my TARDIS interiors ranked. Do you agree? Where would you put each TARDIS design? Is there a specific variation of TARDIS interior you feel was cruelly left out? Let me know in the comments below, and subscribe for more Doctor Who content. A big thank you to my Full Fat tier patron, Dr. Chike. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.